how does an empire rule for 6 centuries, terrify continents, reach the gates of Vienna, and then vanish? Modern Turkey was born in 1923, but its story begins much earlier, inside the rise and fall of the Ottoman Empire. For hundreds of years, the Ottomans looked too powerful to collapse. They ruled across 3 continents, commanded armies, controlled trade, and shaped the lives of millions. But even the mightiest empires carry weaknesses inside them. And that is where this story truly begins. Hello, friends. Welcome to English Mindwave. To understand how modern Turkey came into being, the story cannot begin in 1923, and it cannot begin in Istanbul. That would already be too late. The deeper roots lie much farther east, in the long movement of Turkic peoples across the Eurasian steppe, in a world shaped by migration, pressure, ambition, and survival. The early Turks did not enter history as the founders of a great empire. They moved through uncertainty, crossed difficult landscapes, and were slowly transformed by the civilizations they encountered. Among them rose the Seljuks, who expanded into Persia, absorbed Persian cultural influence, embraced Islam, and changed the political future of the region. Then came Manzikert in 1071, a battle that did more than defeat Byzantium. It opened Anatolia to lasting Turkish power. Long before the Ottomans ruled continents, the conditions for their rise were already being formed in the fractured borderlands of a changing world. From the outside, the early Ottomans may have seemed like just one more frontier principality, another small power, living beside older and more prestigious civilizations. But empires often begin that way, not with certainty, but with a sharp awareness of weakness nearby. The Byzantine Empire had once commanded much of the eastern Mediterranean, but by the 14th century, it was no longer the force it had been. It still carried immense symbolism, yet its real power had narrowed. The Ottomans recognized what fading powers often refuse to admit. Memory and prestige cannot defend a state forever. That recognition shaped their rise. In 1331, Nicaea fell to the Ottomans, marking a major shift in the region. Then came Adrianople, later Edirne, which fell in 1369 and became an Ottoman capital for a time. By then, the Ottomans were no longer simply expanding through Anatolia. They were crossing into Europe and turning geography into opportunity. Yet one city stood above all others. Constantinople was more than a capital. It was the political and symbolic heart of the Byzantine world, the heir to Rome in the east, and one of the most formidable cities of the medieval age, as long as it remained outside Ottoman control. Ottoman expansion still faced a limit. That is why Mehmed II stands as Suds at the center of this story. He understood that some cities are worth more than territory because they change the meaning of power itself. In 1453, after weeks of siege, Constantinople fell. The last Byzantine emperor died in the fighting, and a 1,000-year imperial order came to an end. When Hagia Sophia was turned into a mosque and the city became the Ottoman capital, this was not merely conquest. It was the transfer of a historic center of power. From there, expansion accelerated. Mehmed II pushed into Greece, Bosnia, and other territories. Bayezid II consolidated Ottoman strength in strategic regions. Selim I brought Egypt and much of the Arab world under Ottoman rule. Then, under Suleiman the Magnificent, the empire reached its height. Ottoman power extended across much of the Balkans, the Black Sea region, the Middle East, and North Africa, while its armies advanced to the gates of Vienna. This was the moment when the Ottomans ceased to be a rising frontier state and became one of the great powers of the world. But conquest alone does not explain why the Ottoman Empire endured for so long. Many states know how to win wars, while far fewer know how to turn victory into lasting order. The Ottoman Empire survived for centuries because it built a disciplined political and military structure capable of holding together a vast and varied world. Its military was one of the clearest sources of that strength. The Ottomans developed a highly effective combination of infantry, cavalry, and artillery. Among their most famous troops were the Janissaries, elite soldiers drawn from Christian lands, taken as boys, converted to Islam, and trained under strict discipline. Their origins were coercive, and that should not be softened, yet militarily, they became one of the most effective fighting forces of their time. Ottoman power rested not only on courage, but on organization. Still, force alone would never have been enough. What gave the empire unusual durability was its ability to govern difference. The Ottomans ruled Muslims, Christians, and Jews across an immense imperial landscape, not as equals in a modern democratic sense, but within a layered order that allowed different religious communities to remain inside the system. That flexibility gave the empire resilience. It did not need to erase all difference in order to rule. That helps explain why cities such as Thessaloniki became major centers of Jewish life after expulsions from Spain and elsewhere in Europe. Trade reinforced that strength as well. The Ottoman Empire sat across major land and sea routes, linking Asia, the Middle East, North Africa, and Europe. Wealth moved through Constantinople, Alexandria, Antioch, and Damascus. And with that wealth came strategic leverage. Geography gave the Ottomans an opening, but administration allowed them to profit from it. But the moment a system begins to feel stable and permanent is often the moment it becomes most exposed to change. Decline rarely begins with one dramatic collapse. More often, it begins as a gradual loss of sharpness, a weakening of the habits that once made power effective. The Ottoman Empire did not suddenly become weak. It began to struggle in a world that was changing faster than the empire itself. There were warnings on the battlefield. The failed siege of Malta in 1565 showed that Ottoman expansion had limits. The defeat at Lepanto in 1571 showed that Christian coalitions in the Mediterranean could resist Ottoman naval power. Then came the failed siege of Vienna in 1683, a moment that later came to symbolize the end of Ottoman expansion in Europe. Yet the deeper causes ran below war itself. Over time, the sultans became less directly engaged in governance. More authority shifted to grand viziers, officials, and provincial powers. At the same time, the global economy was being transformed. The Ottoman Empire had grown strong in a world where overland and Mediterranean trade routes gave enormous value to its geography. But as Atlantic powers expanded and oceanic trade connected Europe more directly to the Americas, Africa, and Asia, the old routes became less decisive. The empire did not only lose battles, it lost strategic advantage. Meanwhile, European rivals were advancing in science, technology, and military organization. Russia and Austria pressed against Ottoman frontiers. In the Balkans and North Africa, provinces became harder to control. Serbia rose in revolt. Greece gained independence. Algeria fell to France. Libya was later seized by Italy. By the 19th century, the empire was increasingly described as the sick man of Europe. And still, there were attempts to respond. The Young Turks pushed for constitutional rule, reform, and modernization in 1908, hoping the empire could still be renewed. But reform introduced after a long period of stagnation faces a brutal problem. By then, too many institutions had hardened, too many regions had drifted apart, and too much time had already been lost. And when an empire has already been weakened by time, pressure, and delayed reform, war can turn long decline into final collapse. The First World War became that turning point for the Ottoman Empire. Like many aging powers, it entered the conflict partly in the hope of recovering lost strength and resisting Russian pressure. Instead, the war exposed how fragile the empire had become. There were still moments of real resistance. The victory at Gallipoli showed that Ottoman arms had not lost their capacity to fight with determination, and that memory would later matter deeply in Turkish national consciousness. But one victory could not reverse a wider unraveling. In the Arab lands, the revolt of 1916 to 1918 weakened Ottoman control further. While the empire's military and political resources were stretched toward exhaustion. This period also carried one of the darkest chapters in the story. From 1915 onward, the Ottoman government carried out mass violence against its Armenian subjects, resulting in immense suffering, and the deaths of around 1.5 million people, according to the source behind this narrative. Any serious attempt to understand the empire's end has to face that fact with sobriety. By 1918, the empire was defeated. Allied powers moved into its remaining territories, and plans for partition threatened even Anatolia itself. At that point, the central question was no longer whether the Ottoman Empire could be saved. It was whether a new political future could be built from its ruins. Mustafa Kemal Atatürk became the leading force in that answer. Through the Turkish War of Independence, nationalist forces pushed back Greek and other Allied armies, and in 1923, the Treaty of Lausanne recognized the new Republic of Turkey. Ankara became the capital. and the Ottoman Empire formally ceased to exist. What emerged was not a repaired empire, but a different kind of state. When the story of the Ottoman Empire is seen from beginning to end, what remains is not only the history of a state, but the history of transformation itself. A small frontier power rose from the fractured edges of a larger world, learned how to organize force, govern difference, and seize opportunity, then became one of the most formidable empires on Earth. But this story also reveals something equally important. No empire, no system, and no source of power remains secure forever. That is why this history still feels relevant now. Its lesson is not only about rulers, wars, or borders. It is also about people, societies, and the choices made when old ways no longer fit new realities. Many people hold on to habits, identities, or assumptions because those things once helped them survive. But life changes, and what once created strength can later become the thing that prevents growth. The deeper lesson here is simple, but powerful. Survival does not belong only to the strong. It belongs to those who can face change honestly and rebuild when rebuilding becomes necessary. Before you go, here is a simple question. Do you think great nations fall more because of outside enemies, or because they fail to change from within? Please share your thoughts politely in the comments so everyone can learn from different perspectives. And if you enjoy thoughtful stories like this, please subscribe and support English Mindwave so the channel can keep creating more meaningful videos for you.